Hi, this is a patch breakdown for my song Frolic. I'm going to walk you through each of the components that make up the patch, and I'm going to show you a few ideas that you can use in your own system for modular live performance. Stick around. Pamela's new workout is my master clock. The clock and reset CV are multed many times below, divided or multiplied where needed, and sent around my system, keeping everything in sync. At the heart of this patch, and almost all my patches, is the ACL Symphonian, which acts as the master quantizer for up to 5 voices. What's so important about the Symphonian is that it allows me to execute chord progressions just like a regular song, and it keeps all my voices in harmony throughout any chord I move to. There are a lot of ways to use Symphonian, but for this patch, I'm using Scales mode, which allows me to jump to any of the diatonic chords of the scale I'm in this case C major, with a single volt per octave signal into one of the CV in jacks. The other key player in the patch is the Wmd Metron Sequencer. It sequences all my drums and a few other things. It serves as the master control for moving between the different parts of my song, stored in variations A through E. They're set up in sequential order so that I can trigger the transition from one section to the next with external CV. More on that later. For my bass voice, I use the Noise Dpo. I combined the square wave and the folded wave and sent those to the synthesis technology E440 to be overdriven and filtered. The DPO is receiving volt per octave CV from the IntelliGel Metropolis in ping pong mode, patched through channel 1 of the Symphonian. I'm not using the gate out from Metropolis though. Instead, I'm using channel 1 of Mutable Instruments grids in gate mode, set to a sparse trigger amount. I'm then sending a channel from Planar 2 into the fill amount to add or subtract more triggers when I want them during the performance. More on that later. My lead melody is the Mutable Instruments rings, filtered by Jove System 80. Its rhythm is also being gated by grids with density control from Planar 2. Again, more on that later. For volt per octave CV for this voice, the gate from grids that is strumming rings is also driving the ARP channel of the Symphonian, set to the Baroque pattern for a really cool effect. The secondary melodic voice in the patch comes from the Chaos Devices Odessa. It's receiving some modulation to the density and warp parameters via sine wave LFOs from her mod. The outputs of Odessa are being summed and sent to the Allright Devices Chronoblob 2 for delays. This voice is pretty mellow during the verse. During the choruses, it gets sent through heavy reverb to shine through dramatically. It's being sequenced and triggered by Metron with a volt per octave channel coming from the Volterra expander, sent through channel 3 of Symphonian. Last but not least, my chord voices are coming from the Qubit chord V2, set in unison mode, where I can bypass its internal quantization and send separate volt per octave CV for each of the notes of the chord from Symphonian. I'm using the mix out from chords to send all 4 voices to ripples for filtering. Euclidean Circles is sending triggers to a channel of the IntelliGel ADSR envelope controlling a VCA, and then IntelliGel Quadra is sending a slightly different envelope to ripples to modulate the cutoff frequency. Ripples also has a separate CV modulation hitting its cutoff frequency from a macro controller, so that during the chorus I can open the cutoff all the way open and let the chords ring out for a dramatic effect. More on that later. Drums for the patch are kick and snare coming from Peaks and some hats from the Wmd Chimera. And then there's also some abstract bongo sounds created by sending triggers into the Make Noise QPass mono in, and also to the 2 mystery inputs on each side of the filter. That output is being sent to the Make Noise Mimeophone that has 2 different delay times for the left and right channels, and then into the Make Noise Reverb for some reverb. The 4 main points of hands-on control for this patch are the Moleco voltage block, Make Noise pressure points, the Emblematic Systems Catalyst, and the IntelliGel Planar 2. I use pressure points to jump between 4 different chords on the Symphonian. Not only does it shift the notes in the chord from chord V2, but it shifts all the notes of all melodic lines in my patch so that all my voices remain in harmony. With Planar 2, I'm controlling the rhythm and note density of my lead and bass voices simultaneously with the joystick. CV out of channel A and B patch into the fill inputs of mutable grids running in gate mode. When I move the joystick towards either the A and B quadrant of Planar 2 or both, I can add density to either or both of those patterns. The emblematic systems catalyst gives macro control over a handful of different parameters throughout the system, enabling me to quickly switch between presets of different module parameters for my verse and chorus sections. My intention with Frolic was to have distinct contrasting verse and chorus sections that instantly change timbre, rhythm, and melodies. This meant I couldn't twiddle individual modules, as I'd only be able to change two things at once. I needed to rely on macro controls to make lots of changes with a single gesture. The Catalyst borrows inspiration from the DJ world with its crossfader. Beneath the crossfader are 8 preset slots that I can assign to the left or right side of the slider. The presets correspond to the 9 CV out values ranging from 0 to 10 volts. When I crossfade between the 2 presets that I have assigned to the left and right, the CV values of those outputs shift from one to the other. This can be done slowly or virtually instantaneously depending on the speed that you move the slider. Finally, I'm using a single CV channel at a voltage block to simultaneously trigger Metron to advance to the next part, trigger a drum fill, and open a VCA that allows a channel of Volterra to sweep the filter of the Chaos Belgrade over some white noise being fed into it. As soon as the transition is done, I bring the slider back down and it's ready to trigger the next sequence when I need it. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed learning about my patch and were able to pick up a few techniques that you can use in your own system. If you like this video, please subscribe. I'm going to be coming out with a bunch more stuff. If there was anything that I didn't cover or you want to know more about, leave it in the comment section below. I'd also love to hear about what your favorite performance patches are in your Eurorack system. Take care.